Maureen Steele and I with American Made Foundation landed here in Marblehead, Massachusetts, where our American Navy was established hundreds of years ago. Boston, where the Tea Party erupted into a spirited battle called the American Revolution, a fight for our independence. And yet today, are we really free? Does the state have control of your assets, namely your children? Well, we are back again in Massachusetts because the fight continues on for sovereignty. And we're taking a deep look into Child Protective Services and the organization run by the state of Massachusetts known as the Department of Children and Families. And welcome to a first in our American-made documentary series.
Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping.
The American Made Foundation is a 501c3 dedicated to educating the public on constitutional rights, especially when it comes in terms of agency and judicial corruption and overreach. Through investigative media, legal research, and civic empowerment, the foundation exposes systemic abuse and equips the citizens so that they can take informed, legal, and lawful action.
What you will see in this documentary is a product of our sister organization, American Made Action. Underneath American Made Action is the Department of Government Accountability, a grassroots organization run by we the people to ensure our rights and no constitutional overreach and judicial overreach. Also, you will see the United Law Coalition in action. These lawyers that are featured in this documentary are part of that law coalition. These are brave men that are prepared with their pen to go up against Goliath. These large agencies and rogue judges that have far overstepped their bounds and that are encroaching on unalienable rights of we the people.
American Made Action is a 501c4. Again, it's designed so that we the people can take action in partnership with the legal apparatus that Maureen just described. So enjoy our docuseries. This is a first in many, as we are designed to educate you, the public, so that you can take action. Meet Isael Rivera, called Izzy by those who know him. He is a devoted father from Fitchburg, Massachusetts, who now stands at the center of a storm involving the state's Department of Children and Families. In early 2025, Izzy and his partner Ruth Encarnacion faced allegations of medical neglect after choosing not to vaccinate their 9-month-old, citing religious beliefs.
So this case started here, it's crossed state lines, it went into Texas. You were jailed in Texas as well.
In my opinion, this should be automatically dismissed like that. But instead, what are they doing? They're just prolonging it. Now they've rescheduled for July.
We went to the appointment, it started off normal. We're gonna check your son, just normal.
The majority of the cases I see should not have been instituted at all.
I hope she throws the whole case out and publicly reprimands the government agencies.
Like all government agencies, so it just simply tries to expand its operations, its power, its control.
WRKO, Jeff Cooner, Boston's bulldozer. There is going to be a rally to reunite the Rivera family. Let's get the Riveras back together again. They deserve to have custody of their children.
I just got out from the jail right now, and because of losing everything in this situation, because of DCF and I guess all the parties involved, I've been living in my car while supporting my family from a distance.
So can you explain what happened on that day? You took your youngest child, a 9-month-old little boy.
Yes.
And in for a well visit. Can you explain what happened that day?
Yeah, so we went in I went for the visit. The reason being is because the doctor had pressured us to take a vitamin K12 shot, and the mother didn't want to deal with that stress or pressure. So she asked that I take our son to that appointment. When I went to the appointment, it started off normal. We're gonna check your son, just normal. Then the doctor had brought up the vaccine, again, the vitamin K12, and I then told the doctor, we have spoken about this in length over the phone, and you said you would not pressure me when I came to this appointment. The doctor then said, no, I'm not pressuring you, but he needs it, and we're just recommending it. And I said, okay, well, can I get the normal paper I signed at the previous hospital that shut down, that I used to take my children to? Can I just get the same paperwork that they used to give me, which is the religious exemption? He said, I can't give that to you because we haven't seen your son in a certain amount of time and you haven't gotten this vaccine. I then said, so are you forcing me to get this vaccine? He said, I'm not forcing you, I'm recommending you. I said, well, you're not allowing me to not get it, and you keep pressuring me to get it. So if that's not force, then what is it? You know? And then he then went to bring it to the attention of, well, we haven't seen your son in a certain amount of time, and I feel like this may be this may be of a concern. And I said, okay, well, my son has been seen a couple times. Isn't it in your records? He then said, we don't have the full records yet. And I said, okay, well, don't you guys have to get that? It's not up to me to bring you those records, correct? He said, yes, we just haven't been able to get it. I then said to him, okay, well, I don't want to vaccinate my child again. When you have the paper, just give it to me, I'll sign it. If you need me to get my pastor to sign a document to give you as well for a religious exemption, I can do that as well. He then told me that, that I would have to get my child vaccinated because he had concerns because he doesn't have any knowledge of them being seen by other doctors. And so he basically put the two together. And I said, well, what law states that there's a certain amount of time that you have to see my son between a certain amount of years if my son is completely healthy? And he said, well, there is no law, but I am concerned. And if you leave here today without the vaccine and without documentation showing that your son has been seen, then we're going to have to file a 51A report. And then that's where I got a bit upset, and I asked him, well, what do you mean you have to file? What is a 51A? He said, well, I'm a mandated reporter, and I have concerns of medical neglect because you're not vaccinating your son, and there's no history of prior appointments to his initial appointment here. And I had told him that I was going to switch doctors, that I just want him to complete the wellness check when he was pressuring me for the vaccine. And that's when his whole energy shifted and his demeanor shifted, and he started speaking to me about well, we don't have a record of him being seen.
You leave the office, he tells you, if you don't, you get threatened. If you don't get this shot, I'm going to file a 51A. And for people that don't know what that is a mandated reporter form that they fill out, send to CPS. And CPS has the choice, Child Protective Services, whether it's considered a screen in or a screen out. A screen in is if it's alarming enough, the report alarming enough to warrant opening an investigation with the family. And a screen out would be there's nothing here. In this case, you have a right as a parent in the United States of America to decline medical treatment for your child, to refuse a vaccine. So he files a 51A, and an investigation, it seems, was opened.
Yes.
Really violates due process all up and down, all the way down. From the time that a child gets involved with the system or a family gets involved with the system, all the way till finally when the agency lets go. Just about every single aspect of it is completely against what we in the United States and all of our other judicial system and legal system aspects consider to be reasonable due process. I mean, it starts right with how children get put into the system from the beginning. Each state has its own, what I like to call a snitch hotline. It's a child abuse hotline that people can call. It's very commonly to call from medical practices, from schools, cranky neighbors, cranky exes who want to get the other ex in trouble. There's all kinds of ways that people get into that. In our little state of Massachusetts alone, there's over 100,000 calls to this hotline every year. And from there, the agency takes a look at these things and decides which cases to investigate and which ones not to. Well, then we get to the second problem, and the problem is a very low standard of proof. It's called a reasonable cause to believe that a child is abused or neglected. Now, what's that mean? Nobody knows. Yeah. But it's something less than even probable cause.
How do you find out that a case has been opened?
I found out because, well, he told me that he was going to do it, and then I left after getting a clean bill of health for my child from him, ironically. And then I find out because a CPS, or in our state they call him DCF agent, just showed up to our door knocking and just left a notice on the door, and then I read the notice that they wanted to see our children, and that's how I found out.
Okay, so now they want to see all of your children, even though there was just a 9-month-old who you refused a vitamin K vaccine for.
Correct.
Okay, and so you get that first notice on your door, and what do you do, and what happens next?
Well, I get the notice on my door, and I look it over, and I'm just stunned. I can't believe that this is a reality, because the doctor just gave my son a clean bill of health after looking him over, but still for some reason filed the medical neglect. And I mean, what I did after that was basically just call them, and well, actually prior to calling them, I found out that they were, through a phone call through my wife, that they had gone to her mom's home as well, and basically just went down the family line to just find us, you know. So her mother, my brothers, her sisters, even extended family that don't live in the state, they were calling anybody and everyone they could that had a connection to us to figure out where we were, you know, and to get in contact with us.
Right. Did the doctor indicate that you had an unwell child? I mean, when I think medical neglect, I think of some child with a broken arm and parents leave them, you know, with a broken arm for days. That would be, in my book, medical neglect. So how did it escalate to this level where, you know, your entire family, extended family is getting called all over the country, trying to hunt you down like it's some sort of desperate situation? What was conveyed to DCF, the Department of Children and Families here in Massachusetts?
I'm not really sure what was conveyed to them, you know, because they're, like you said, medical neglect or any type of neglect would be like something like a broken arm, a bruise, a scratch, something that actually raises, you know, the concerns of abuse or neglect, which there was none. I mean, the doctor let me go, you know, he gave me a clean bill of health. He said he was going to report because he was a mandated reporter. I was just going to switch my doctor and get the religious exemption. That's how I left off. And I thought it would just be fine, you know. If there was truly medical neglect or any type of neglect, then why didn't they call the police on me? So I didn't take it as serious, I guess, as they were trying to, you know, attack me for it, you know. So they didn't convey to me any type of abuse or neglect, and still to this day, even on the report, they've switched it from medical neglect to other things, you know. They're not even substantiating the medical neglect because there is none, you know.
Right. So now they're trying to, it appears they're trying to find other reasons to hold on to your children and to keep you and your wife away from your children.
In the Child Protective Services, though, it's so fuzzy. What constitutes a reasonable cause to believe that a child is being abused or neglected? So it's, they way overreach. And I mean, I've seen things like, you know, the parents take away a teenager's iPhone. You know, they homeschool children. They won't get the children vaccinated, or they don't want to go on the regular schedule to the pediatrician that the pediatrician thinks is necessary. Things like this, the parents are supposed to be allowed and able to do and to direct the upbringing of their own children.
You get off the phone with DCF, tell them everything's good, you don't want their services, your rights are being violated. Now what happens?
It just happened again. It just kept happening every day.
They keep showing up at your house?
Yeah, and then I eventually called the supervisor and then the supervisor above that to see if, you know, if something could be done about this, and they just all agreed that's their procedure, that's how they have to do it. I explained to them that this was filed off of a medical neglect of one child, which was proven to not be medically neglected and left with a clean bill of health, in which I asked them why, if there was a true concern, was I allowed to leave that hospital? Why didn't they call the police on me? You know, why didn't they actually intervene?
Right.
And they just gave me no answers and railroaded me and just told me they need to see my kids, and that's all they were giving me.
And they're showing up at your house every day?
Yes, until they eventually showed up with the police, yes.
Okay. And what town is this in?
Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
And so it's Worcester County DCF office, that department?
Yes, it was the Leominster, Massachusetts DCF.
The Leominster, okay. And so now, which police force is involved? Is it Leominster Police, Fitchburg Police? Worcester Police. Who's showing up at your house with the CPS?
Fitchburg Police.
Fitchburg Police. And how many officers show up with the CPS worker, DCF?
It was, I would say maybe around, I'm not sure the exact number because we hid because it was just such a traumatizing experience, but enough to surround the entire house. So I would say 6 to 10. Oh, and then police cars blocking the roads and.
Okay. So you're being dealt with like you're a criminal.
So, I mean, it happened several times before we said, okay, we're just gonna leave because clearly the state and the city is not protecting us or our children or our interests or our rights. And so, yeah, we left.
Fearing the loss of their children, the couple fled to Texas, only to be apprehended by law enforcement and held for 30 days for $2.5 million bail each.
You know, just, okay, if they're not gonna protect us, let's just move to another state where we have friends and, you know, other family that, you know, maybe they won't treat us the way the state would, because Texas, to my knowledge at the time, is a different, you know, it operates differently than a state like this where they don't protect your kids. At least that's what I was told. And so I just said, okay, well, we're gonna have to leave you're gonna have to leave your job behind, unfortunately. I'll pick up more clientele because I'm a digital marketer. I'll support us, you know, and then we prayed and we left.
Okay. And you're thinking, we're just starting a new life here. That's all behind you. And then what happens in Texas?
I went to go get groceries one day and formula, and you know, this was told to me after how events occurred, but just to speak from the pretense of what happened. So I was going to get groceries for my kids and formula for my youngest son, and I was caught on a facial recognition in the grocery store. And I left, and there was a truck outside with tinted windows, and they were just there basically to follow me. They followed me to our location, and then we were surrounded.
That's just incredible. Okay, and as far as you know, Izzy, did they have a warrant for your arrest at this point, or are there warrants out, and how were those acquired? Do you know?
So at that point, I didn't know there was a warrant out, or I, would have handled it. I would have just left. But
yeah. And how did they get a warrant for you? What was said? Do you know?
I was told after that they got a warrant because we didn't show up to a court date that they had put to basically see if to take my children. Yeah. And that's how. So
you didn't get served. So you missed a court date, but you didn't know there was a court date.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you ever get proof that they had served you or told you there was a court date or anything like that, or you didn't know and you were in Texas?
I didn't know. I was just in Texas. I knew things were escalating, but any notice they ever gave me was that we need to see the children, and I was like, okay, well, my rights are being protected. I tried talking to the doctor originally. I tried talking to DCF over the phone and their supervisors. I tried talking to the police. They're just attacking me. I don't know what to do, so we just left. So I didn't get any notification. I didn't get any notice. By their own statements, which I read after I was in jail, they said that they notified me on one date and then they went to serve me on a date after that, so by their own statements, they're contradicting themselves,
Right. Okay, so there's no proof of service, which is just due process, and they can't prove you were served.
So the way the situation happened was they surrounded me. I didn't know anything until they said it over like a intercom, and they said, "We know you're in there. We're not leaving. Come out with your hands up, or we're gonna rip the door off." And then I was like, and then my kids started crying and getting terrified, and so then I opened up the shades and I saw that we were surrounded, and there was about like 15 to 20 pistols pointed at me and my family, which was dramatic and unnecessary. They already had the whole perimeter enclosed. They had my only way of they had my car, my only way of transportation. I should say my automobile. They had it, they were next to that too. So it's not like there was anywhere I could go or anything I could do. Yeah. So just like a movie scene basically is what it looked like. And I walked out and I prayed and I said, God, if today's my last day, like, please protect my children and don't please don't let them go into a foster care and have things happen to them that happened in
Their 5 children, unharmed, were placed under state custody. Extradited back to Massachusetts, Izzy, charged with kidnapping his own children, remained detained for 6 weeks, while Ruth was released on bail. Their case has ignited debates on parental rights, medical freedom, and the extent of state intervention. This is not just a story of the Rivera family. This is an American-made foundation investigation into a billion-dollar system built on broken families. From Massachusetts to every corner of the country, Child Protective Services has morphed into a business, one that profits off the seizure, trafficking, and long-term separation of children from loving homes.
So then, a certain number of these cases continue in an administrative track, where the agency comes in and oversees and puts together plans to try to fix the family. And then a certain number go into the actual judicial system, where they go into court. And in court, they're entitled to a hearing up front. If they take those children from the family, they're entitled to a hearing. And supposedly, it's supposed to be within 72 hours in all these states. It never is. Many times it's weeks or even months before they get a hearing. So these children are languishing in custody of the state, and the parents have no opportunity to even address the issue and try to get the children back. And then nothing, crickets, because what happens is, and particularly in our state and many, many other states, there's no way to address any kind of change or compliance until the very end of a case, which often takes a year or two. Now, there's supposed to be a 15-month federal deadline, but they rarely comply with that. But then if you get into the court system, the assaults on due process are actually even worse. There's no jury trial. All of the courts are secret. No press, no public is allowed. And they don't really, in most cases, use the actual rules of evidence that are used in every other part of the court system. And all the documentation is secret. So they're able to run an almost completely under the radar system without any accountability or scrutiny by anybody. And that guarantees that it's not going to be done right.
How are they getting away with that legally? How are they doing it? Because our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, says you can't remove someone's property without a trial by jury. You have to have due process. We have unalienable rights in this country. How is it that CPS, DCF, DSS, it's called different things in different states, how is it that they're getting away with this?
That is the question. Because all of our state constitutions in every single one of the 50 states say the same thing. All of them protect due process rights as well. In fact, ours in the state of Massachusetts was written by John Adams in 1780, prior to even the federal Constitution. And it protects life and liberty and property, certainly would protect the right of families to direct the upbringing of their children. So how do they get away with it? They just say, we don't care.
This goes beyond the Rivera family. It exposes the nationwide CPS industry profiting from the removal and trafficking of children. We're uncovering how due process is denied, families are broken, and federal dollars drive a system of state-sanctioned separation.
Wow, it's just such an incredible story. And can you explain what your wife was, her state at this point in time when she's seeing you get arrested, you're surrounded again, and she's getting arrested?
This is way outside of her realm of even understanding. So I just think that she was just traumatized. I found out, later on that she is traumatized, through family members that have spoken to her because I'm not allowed to speak to her. But yeah, she just broke down. She's traumatized. She was just holding the kids as long as she could. And then they basically ripped her youngest son from her, which I think, even though it was all traumatizing, I think the youngest son was the most because we just had him.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just awful. I don't think there's a parent out there that can't empathize. It's just everyone's worst nightmare. So, and you had to feel so helpless, and her, that there's nothing you can do, and you have no idea where your kids are going to go. At that point, they could be going into foster care. You just don't know.
I asked the police, and they wouldn't tell me anything. So they just didn't tell me anything.
And so, at this point, you're still the custodial parents. You have all decision-making rights and responsibilities, and they're not even telling you where they're taking your children.
Yeah, to our knowledge, there are God-given kids. Like we got together out of love. We created them, and I mean, they're our kids. I don't even I was confused. I didn't even understand how a government could take your children.
Yeah, so certainly not here in the United States. So you spent 30 days in Texas jail and your wife, and there's no contact between the two of you for this whole time.
No contact. Yeah, I mean, I was confused too myself when they hit me with the bail that they did, because they couldn't explain to me why they did it. I had to ask other inmates to get information. They hit both me and her with a $2.5 million bail, which is excessive and an unusual punishment, because we should be able to bail out and resolve our situation. I mean, that's basically when we got notified of, hey, you guys are arrested because there's a warrant for you guys in Massachusetts. And okay, well, let us bail out and go handle it. And no, they hit us with $2.5 million each, $500,000 for each child, even though they're our children.
And what's the charge? So you're in jail, and what's the charge?
Well, yes, they told us custodial kidnapping, actually, yes.
Okay, so you and your wife kidnapped your own children.
Children, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up?
Yeah, I don't even know how to, like, every time I say it to myself or replay it in my head, it just doesn't even make sense. How can you kidnap your own children? That's like you driving somewhere, going to Disneyland to have fun. The state says, hey, no, we own your children, and you left and went to Florida to go to Disneyland. So guess what? You're criminals now. We're gonna persecute you across the country. You kidnapped your children from us, and with through medical neglect, which we've proven through interviews and from both departments in Texas and Massachusetts that there was never any medical neglect. The doctor proved it himself when he gave my son a clean bill of health, but we're gonna persecute you anyway. My plan going forward is to just beat the case, never end up here again. And yeah, I mean, a lot of my case is based off injustice. So, I am a man that takes accountability. So, but hopefully just beat this case, reunite with my family, move forward, and that's basically it.
All right. Well, I said we don't, get involved in the details of the cases. Our job is just to, care, custody, and control when you're here, and when when you get released, you get released. And I wish you all the best. And like I said, I always say to everybody who leaves this place, I never want to see you again. And what I mean by that is not in here.
Yeah.
I want to see you out there, and you're succeeding, and you're doing well. You're taking care of your family, and you're living the best life you can. So that's what I hope for you as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you take care.
God bless you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
When I went to jail, it was different than the one in Texas, because in Texas, they allowed you to bring in your legal documentation. They just had to make sure there was no weapons or any type of drugs in there or things like that. When I went to the Massachusetts jail, you're not allowed to get any of your stuff. So all the stuff that I gathered today was supposed to be given to me after a couple of days, but it was never given to me until now. So they bring it to what's called special services, and they have a dog sniff through your paperwork. And the guy told me 3 to 4 days I would have my stuff back. I was in jail for almost 2 months here in Massachusetts, and they didn't give me my stuff at all. So in order to go to court, I had to argue with one of the COs, the head CO, and tell him, listen, I am representing myself. I have to have this paperwork. And so he said, I can't give it to you. And then finally I was able to negotiate with him for my paperwork. He said, I can't give it to you, but I can make photocopies and give you the photocopies. So then I brought the photocopies to court. After arriving at the court, I got out the paddy wagon. I went inside. I had my paperwork. It should be on the camera of the holding cell that I was in. And then after, when they called me, when I went upstairs, I brought it up with me as well. And then the guard took my paperwork from me. And I said, I need that to represent myself. He said, no, it's just an arraignment. I said, I understand what it is. I still need that to represent myself. I have to say what's on that paper. That's why I brought it. Those are my lawful documents. You can't hold that from me. He said, no, it's an arraignment, and brought me upstairs. When we were upstairs, you'll probably see it on the camera. I looked to the side to him and said, I need my paperwork. He said no, folded it up and held it to his side, and didn't allow me to use my paperwork in court. And so when I represented myself, I had to do it all from the mind, which put me in a position that, of being, basically it just put me in a bad position where I couldn't fully use my lawful documentation. but I wasn't able to represent myself, and then I was just taken out of court and then put into the jail. Then when I arrived to the jail, they put me in the hold for 2 days. I didn't even do anything. They just put me on the hold in 2 days. And then when they finally brought me to a block, I was considered high profile, but everybody knew my case because it was already on the news. So I had inmates asking me, like, what did you do? Did you rape a child? What is your kids? Because in jail, the politics are very different. Besides God protecting me, there was an inmate there, and I just think that's God protecting me, that was able to speak to someone on the outside and look into my case, and they saw that no, he didn't do anything to children. Anything that was done, and I'm going to say alleged because the case is still open, was a good father protecting his kids from government overreach. And they said I would have done the same thing. And then basically everybody in that cell was on my side, and then I was just basically protected.
The media then portrayed you as?
They defamed my character and came at my character. They basically portrayed me as a kidnapper of my own children. I don't even know how that makes sense, but and they portrayed me as, because of how ignorant basically the world is and how much they trust the government and government agencies. When I read comments and figured things out and was told things of what were being said about me, I basically came to the conclusion of seeing that people believe in these agencies so much that they started looking at me as if I was a bad father or I had done something wrong, because DCF couldn't be wrong. He had to have done something. Then, luckily for me, or I should say again, God has people that know the truth and have also gone through these situations themselves in the same state and even in the same city, speaking up about it and speaking on the fact that no, medical neglect is a tool used to take your children.
On a gray, rain-soaked Thursday morning, Izzy Rivera stood before the court, another painful chapter in a case that has laid bare the troubling inner workings of Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. And what is your take on this entire situation?
I think it's a violation of a parent's right. We should have the say-so of what we put in our children's body, just as we have the say-so of what to put in our bodies. I know that there are several children that are not vaccinated. They're healthy. I've seen many vaccinated children who are getting sick constantly, and I'm in support of a parent's right.
How can parents be convicted of kidnapping their own children? It's just nuts. Obviously, the Department of Children and Families in Massachusetts has gone out of control.
A powerful crowd of supporters, parents, advocates, and fellow citizens gathered in solidarity outside the courthouse and inside the gallery. Emotions ran high as the father and mother stood before the court, fighting for the return of their children. His court-appointed attorney arrived late and went straight to the bench, never once acknowledging her client. The silence spoke volumes, leaving Rivera's supporters in the gallery questioning whether the system has any genuine concern for the parents it claims to serve. As Izzy fights to bring his children home, the courtroom has become ground zero in a growing battle between parental rights and unchecked state authority. Following the hearing, Izzy and Ruth were escorted to a private meeting room alongside their respective attorneys. There, they were informed that both sides had agreed to return to court in July for a motion to dismiss. This joint decision between the prosecution and defense signals a potential shift in the case, one that could bring long-awaited relief if the motion is granted.
I feel good because I got to see my wife. She wouldn't look at me though, but again, that's because of, DCF and the destruction of my family and what they're telling her she's allowed and not allowed to do. I feel good. They're gonna put in a 3G motion to dismiss.
Is that her attorney that's doing it, or your attorney?
Both of our attorneys are doing it. That's what they stated in court that they were gonna do.
Okay, and do they feel like they have a good solid ground to do that? Is your attorney coming around?
Yeah, they're 100% confident that they do. Because again, this should have never happened. Well, right now I'm just restructuring my life. I haven't seen my kids after, being incarcerated for 3 months, and my first visitation is tomorrow, so I'm excited, I'm happy.
Where will that be?
In the DCF office in Worcester, Mass.
Okay, and where are your children currently? Who's bringing them to the office?
Currently they're with relatives. They're with my wife's mother and my wife's sister, and I believe that the caseworker is going to take them.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel that there's an opportunity to reconcile with your wife after the case is dismissed?
I'm absolutely not sure, because I don't know. I mean, this has been traumatizing for her. She got placed in jail. No criminal record, no nothing, just placed in jail for the first time ever in her life, which she should have never went through. Then her kids kidnapped from her by DCF. And I mean, that's all I can say, because, my attorneys are telling me not to speak on the case because it is an open case, but, they're charging us with kidnapping when in reality they're the kidnappers and they're the destroyers of families.
Imagine not just having your kids ripped away, but being a little child and being torn away from your parents.
These people have every right to decide whether or not to vaccinate their children, and if these people didn't give them permission to concern themselves with your private, federally protected medical information, as far as I'm concerned, you committed crimes against these families.
I'm here to support the Rivera family. These parents are obviously very good parents. They stood for their children's health and safety, as they should as parents, and they've been attacked legally by this tyrannical government.
I'm here because I heard this story and I thought it was absolutely terrifying and appalling that they actually ripped this family apart. The only crime this family committed was they made a choice not to give their child a certain vaccine, and the pediatrician reported them, and then they ended up having to go on the run with their children to Texas. They were hunted down like criminals and split apart the entire family. I think it's absolutely insane. It's not only unconstitutional, but it's an assault on our parental rights. It's an assault on our God-given human rights, our medical freedom. It's just crazy to me.
Again, this isn't the first time I've heard this from victims of CPS, DCF here in Massachusetts. Is this something that you've seen in the past as well? Is this a common theme where people are threatened by CPS, that if you don't comply, if you don't do everything we tell you, we're going to put your kids in a foster home and you'll never see them again?
Yes, that happens probably in the majority of cases, particularly when both parents are invested and involved and love their children and want to be part of it. If it's a single parent family, that works less, but in any two-parent family, intact family, that divide and conquer is one of their favorite tactics. Right. They seize on one of the parents and say, okay, we're going to make you bow, we're going to make you obey, and you're going to have to reject the other parent. Right. Now, keep in mind that in every single state, it's a mandate to try to reunify families. Right. I mean, the law says that. Right. But like many of these other laws, they couldn't care less that that's what they're supposed to do. So what they do is they do exactly the opposite. They put all these threats, and they will indeed take the children, eliminate visits, and as you pointed out, most of these visits are an hour a week. An hour a week for your children to get to see them. Who can maintain a relationship over a year or 2 years with children, seeing them an hour a week? Yep. It's just horrible.
So when your wife gets out, is she reunited with your children?
No, she's not. She's kept away from them. DCF, she has to comply with DCF under duress and by force of, keeping her kids away from her, and or else they'll end up in a foster care, and.
So she's under threat that if she doesn't comply, your kids are going into foster homes, and they're going to permanently lose your children.
As well as.
But as of right now, your wife has never neglected or abused your kids. No. There's no evidence that your wife has ever neglected or abused your children, or that she's an irresponsible mother, that she shouldn't be left alone with a child. No. There's no evidence of that, but she still, to this day, as of this interview, can't see her kids but like an hour a week, and it has to be supervised. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When we try to bring up the misconduct of the agency, most of the judges will say, well, the agency's not on trial here. In other words, it's the parents.
Right.
They're the problem,
Right.
never the agency.
Yeah.
It can do no wrong.
And isn't it a job of a judge to get to the truth of the matter? I mean, isn't that the point? And so for them to not hear what's happening with the agency, like the agency making, I've heard that they create evidence out of thin air to bolster themselves when they get caught with malfeasance or what they did is a little shaky, that they fabricate evidence in their own favor to justify what they did when they don't have the real evidence. Have you witnessed that as well?
I have seen that, and they do a number of different things to try to get evidence. I mean, they talk to other family members, they go to the doctors, they go to the school. They're trying to find anything or anybody that can say a bad word about the parents so that they can justify the continued captivity. I'm not sure how much is manufactured, but they try to put together a sinister sounding folio of statements from various people that, well, maybe they disciplined their child wrong, or maybe they didn't go and get their vaccines when they were young, or something of that. So whatever they can pull together.
So what's happening right now is that I'm forced to comply, or I won't be able to get my kids back. I'm under duress. I mean, they're using my kids against me, so they have the ultimate weapon against me or any parent. My hands are tied. It's like I left one prison to go into another one. The handcuffs haven't come off because, they're forcing me to comply and take from now it seems, a year or more of my life to just do programs that I shouldn't even have to do to be with my kids,
And these are, I'm assuming you have to pay for these programs.
Yeah.
And what are the programs that they want to do? What does complying look like? What are the hoops they're asking you to jump through?
They're asking me to do a psychological evaluation. They're trying to paint me as crazy, I believe, to protect themselves. They want me to do a domestic abuse class to make her a victim and me an aggressor, so they can paint a picture against me as well. And then they want me to take therapy classes for my emotions.
You spend 30 days in jail there, and then you get sent back here to Massachusetts, you and your wife.
Yeah.
So you're not freed after that, and was there any hearings in Texas?
There was one hearing for to waive extradition or not, and basically they would have had to, I would have had to stay, they said 90 days or more until they could get the a governor's hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at this point, do you know where your kids are? Do you have any idea where your children are? Are they giving you any information?
No.
And you don't know how your wife is doing?
I don't know how she's doing. I would ask a CO every day, but they wouldn't tell me because they said their policy is that inmates can't have communication with each other and that we were co-defendants. And I'm like, how are we co-defendants? What did we do? Where is my wife?
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah. What was that like for you sitting in jail, coping with those emotions and those feelings? Because you're obviously missing your children. Your life is just blown up.
Yeah.
Your job is going down the drain. Your career, that even at this point, I'm sure you're thinking, if I get out, how do I even support my family? You have your own marketing business. You can't call clients. What was that like for you?
I personally consider myself a strong man. I work out every day to, strengthen my mind, and I believe in God and faith, and I'm a very strong man mentally and emotionally, but this just broke me down. I was just broken down. I was traumatized myself, and I we all go through certain traumas in life that build us and grow us, but this was this was just different. They took my kids from me, and all I was thinking in my mind personally, I don't know if you want to have this interview, was I hope they don't get, raped. I hope they don't get hit, abused. I hope they don't actually get neglected. I hope, and my fear was for all of them, but I'm not gonna lie to you, especially my 9-month-old, because he can't even speak. What if they do something to him? Will I ever find? My thoughts were just running crazy for their protection, her protection, because I knew she was gonna be, my whole worries, or all of my worries were for them, I was just praying to God, keeping my faith. I read the Bible to whenever my mind would take me to places where I needed to cry and things like that. But yeah, just traumatizing, a lot of stress. I'm just hoping God, and I'm believing that God will restore my family, and I'll get justice for all the wrong that's been done to my family.
Yeah. Any messages for your wife and children right now? Someday they'll watch this.
Yeah.
And so, what would you say to them if they were in front of you right now?
I would say that Daddy loves them, and I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm sorry that I didn't protect you the way I'm supposed to protect you. And God will restore us, and I love you, and I'll never stop loving you.
A recent decision in the Massachusetts Parents for Religious Liberty case has shed new hope and new light on those parents that are fighting for medical freedom in the battle with Child Protective Services. Mike King, president of the Massachusetts Family Institute, joins us now with the latest development in a Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court decision.
And so this case came to your attention how? And, you know, what is it that you wanted to share today? I know you had some exciting news from a recent ruling.
Yeah, so we came, I mean, this was in the news, obviously, and we have contacts all over the state. So even before it got in the news, you know, people letting us know what's going on, journalists. And so, of course, whenever there's a religious liberty issue or a parental rights issue, we want to, you know, really serve in that way and protect those rights. So, I just learned this week that we had a really great ruling at the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. There was Rastafarian parents that DCF had temporary custody of their children, and there was this question about vaccination, and the parents were very much against it. And so we had a ruling come out in favor of the parents, in favor of the parental rights here in Massachusetts. And I'll just read a quote from the court. It says, "There is no question that the rights to freely practice one's religion and to raise children according to the dictates of one's own conscience are among the most sacred private interests, long recognized as such by this court and the United States Supreme Court," and then goes on to say that this reaffirms that the Massachusetts Constitution provides even more protection for religious liberty than the U.S. Constitution does. So very pleased that the SJC came out with a ruling protecting religious liberty, protecting parental rights, especially in cases like with DCF and when parents do not want their kids to be vaccinated when the children are under temporary custody.
Absolutely, and there's so many cases where as soon as CPS gets those kids, that's the first thing they do, especially when they know the parents don't want it. It's a power play. It's terrible. And so thank you so much for all the good work you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we want to definitely be protecting parental rights, and to know that the Massachusetts Constitution is even more conservative on this issue than the U.S. Constitution, and to have a precedent like this is very exciting as we move forward to protect parents that find themselves in this similar situation.
Sure. So how is it that, especially given that it is in the Mass Constitution, it's in the United States Constitution, and you see these cases all the time, that they're getting away with this, that CPS, these judges in these lower courts sitting on family court benches, just rubber stamp whatever CPS says, and they just trample the Constitution, unalienable rights, due process, parental rights, which are sacred. How is this happening, and how often do you see it?
Well, it's a constitutional crisis, right? I mean, we just have people that are not interpreting the Massachusetts Constitution well at all, and the U.S. Constitution. I mean, I was at a First Liberty event recently where one of their representatives said that we're living in a time now where we have precedent that has given us the most religious liberty we've ever had in our history, which is kind of crazy to understand that with all the violations of religious liberty and all the violations of parental rights, but to know that we live in a time where we have precedent from state courts, from the Supreme Court especially, to protect our religious liberty. So I think the point here is we need to start exercising those religious liberties and not just, so that's why we constantly are telling people in Massachusetts, please come to us with, when you've been violated on your First Amendment rights, because if you don't stand up for these rights, which you have, you're going to lose those rights.
Right, but as far as I know, and I'm a paralegal, it's the role of a judge sitting on that bench isn't to rule. The role is to protect your rights.
Right, or is to interpret the law.
within the confines of the
Right.
Constitution.
Right.
They swear an oath to uphold that
Right.
Constitution. And so your advice is for people to uphold their own rights when that is the role of the judge.
Yeah, don't rely on the judge. Don't rely on the judge.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great to know that in 40 different states, including Massachusetts, there is pro bono legal help for you to protect those rights. And we're excited that we have great precedent at the Supreme Court, and now we have great precedent at the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court.
As more families come forward with stories of overreach, secrecy, and devastating separation, it's clear the crisis isn't just about one case. It's the system itself. Attorney William Gens brings a seasoned constitutional perspective to what many are now calling a rogue, unlawful apparatus. Bill Gens is a throwback to a bygone era, a time when attorneys grounded their practice in the Constitution, personal integrity, and fearless advocacy for the individual. In a legal landscape too often dominated by backroom deals and bureaucratic compromise, Gens stands out as a principled defender of due process and natural rights, echoing the resolve of a mid-century legal giant who believed the courtroom was a place for truth, not theater. With decades of experience, Gens is among a growing chorus demanding a full overhaul or outright dismantling of CPS, a system operating far outside the bounds of the Constitution.
With regard to the problem of DCF, for example, or Child Protective Services, I mean, it's known by a whole bunch of acronyms in different states, but it's the same problems everywhere. It's part of a larger problem, which is the administrative state. The events of the last several years, and by that I mean really going back to around 2015, 16 or so, but accelerating with great rapidity in 2020, from then to the present, has been, for many people, a great reveal. For people who were not in fear, for people who are having inquiring mind, who are capable of reasoning things out on their own, there's been abundant things happening all around us to allow us to grow spiritually and in terms of our understanding of what's happening around us. Even people who were so-called conspiracy theorists before all that have learned things, such as myself. I never believed in climate change or the moon landings or a dozen other things that you could talk about. But I wasn't prepared for the depth of the reveal that I saw, especially from COVID. I saw every human weakness possible. I saw ignorance, corruption, cowardice. I saw so much, and so did everybody else. I think that the level of awareness is high amongst people, is higher now than it's ever been in the last, at least in the post-World War II era. And people are questioning. They're questioning their government. They're questioning Big Pharma. They're questioning these foreign wars. They're questioning DCF. They're questioning so many things. And that's good. I believe that God wants us to seek truth. It says in the Bible over and over again, two things: seek truth and fear not. And that's a spiritual message. And as long as people do that, we're going to be so much better off.
It has now been 7 months. 7 months of silence in a house that should be filled with laughter. 7 months of empty bedrooms where children should be resting peacefully, knowing their loving parents are in the next room. 7 months of absence, of waiting, of aching hearts, a family torn apart not by accident, but by design. On August 28, 2025, Ruth Encarnacion and Izzy Rivera will return once again to Fitchburg District Court. Ruth faces 5 counts of what the state has labeled kidnapping minor by relative. Her attorney, Kevin Carl Larson, has filed a motion demanding that the state dismiss these charges. Larson is confident his client will prevail because the state cannot prove she was ever properly served before her children were taken away. Yet the question remains, if the law cannot sustain these charges, why are taxpayers' dollars wasted prolonging this nightmare? Why continue to torment this family by keeping them apart? Izzy, refusing to surrender, replaced his court-appointed attorney with William Gens for his defense, and he now has Greg Hession in juvenile court, a man who has spoken boldly against the injustices of DCF. Together, they continue the legal fight, but while the lawyers battle inside the courtroom, the cost outside its walls grows heavier by the day. With these charges hanging over them, Ruth and Izzy are essentially unemployable. Background checks now brand them as kidnappers. Their small businesses, once thriving, collapse under the weight of that label. Mainstream media painted them as criminals before a jury ever heard the facts. Ruth, once a respected medical translator and transcriptionist, waits for the day she can return to her calling. In the meantime, she takes whatever work she can find to help pay the bills. Izzy presses forward as a digital marketer, rebuilding brick by brick, but both know their real work, their real mission, is to bring their children home. For nearly a dozen years, Ruth and Izzy built a family together. They nurtured, they sacrificed, they loved. And in a single moment, that bond was violated by a system that presumed it knew better than parents themselves. Now, every day is a fight to prove what should have been unquestionable, that children belong with their loving parents, that families are sacred, that truth matters. 7 months is a long time in the life of a child, a long time to be denied bedtime stories, goodnight kisses, the warmth of a hug, the comfort of home. A long time for parents to wait, staring at empty beds, folding away clothes that no one wears, whispering prayers into the silence. 7 months of heartache, 7 months stolen. And yet Ruth and Izzy refuse to surrender. Their story is not over. It is the story of thousands of families across this country, silenced, broken, yet still standing. It is a reminder that behind every case number, behind every charge, behind every file buried in a courthouse, there is a human story, a story of parents who love, of children who wait, and of a system that must be held accountable. The fight continues until justice comes, until families are restored, until silence is replaced once again with laughter.
Child Protective Services took their children.
Then one night, CPS showed up and under emergency orders took the 2 kids.
It's not just a mistake. It's not like they didn't make the right call and okay, we're just checking it with the courts. It was, we know we're not making the right call and we're going to violate someone's constitutional right to raise their children by removing them based upon our lives.
They were never properly served. Think about that. A family blindsided, criminalized, destroyed without due process. What followed was a nightmare no American should ever endure. Izzy and Ruth Rivera lost everything: their home, their jobs, their livelihood, and worst of all, their children. Held at gunpoint, arrested like dangerous criminals when they had done absolutely nothing wrong. Their children, terrified, traumatized, ripped from their parents' arms. You don't forget something like that. A child doesn't recover from that. No family does. This is the kind of tyranny we associate with third world dictatorships, but it's happening here, every day, in towns just like yours. Families torn apart, branded with false charges, left unemployable, humiliated, stripped of dignity and hope. The Riveras were painted as kidnappers, 5 counts of kidnapping, when the truth is, they were never even given the chance to defend themselves before their lives were shattered. Their children remain in state custody, scarred, alienated, broken by a system that swears it's protecting them. This is not protection. This is sanctioned abuse, state-sanctioned kidnapping. And I wish I could tell you this was an extraordinary story, a one-off, but it isn't. The Riveras are one family in hundreds of thousands. This machine is churning every single day, devouring children, destroying parents, annihilating the very core of family.
And there hasn't been one person that I've spoken to that has some type of involvement or someone they know with DCF that doesn't go through the same exact thing of like, well, we don't need DCF, we're great parents.
That's why their story matters. That's why this film exists. Because silence is complicity, because mainstream media won't tell you the truth, because the only way to stop this is for people like you to stand up, to speak out, to say no more. The Riveras deserve justice. Their children deserve to come home. And America deserves better than a government that wages war on its families. This is Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping, and it's only the beginning. This is the reckoning, and the rising is now. Join us. Please go to American Made Action. There are always actionable items on there that you can take immediately. It is going to take all of us to push back on a rogue government, rogue agencies, and rogue judges.
Join us again, AmericanMadeAction.org and at AmericanMadeFoundation.org. Thank you for watching.